Most people believe addiction runs in families because of genetics. Sounds sort of reasonable, but it creates a serious problem. If we treat addiction as some kind of inherited biology, we stop examining inherited silence. We stop questioning family myths, emotional repression, and the rules about not feeling. In this episode, I want to look at what actually gets passed down and why calling it genetic destiny might be the most convenient story of all. Drugs and Addiction, an Anarchist Perspective, Dickie Dredd. And this is part 18 in the video series and still on chapter 2, which is the childhood of fog. Section 16, the inherited script. If imagination was my first escape, inheritance was the trap I didn't see. The patterns that shaped me were older than I was, passed down like family silver, only tarnished and sharp-edged. My mother's crying, my father's distance, the choreography of pretending. None of it started with them. It was their inheritance too. Judith Herman wrote that trauma recurs when the social context that might heal it is absent. My parents lived in that absence. Respectability was their religion because it promised safety. And safety was all they'd ever been taught to want. They came from a world still bruised by war, rationing and class anxiety. The great British virtue of composure was born not from confidence but from fear of exposure. Feelings were luxuries, privacy was armour. My mother wore charm like a uniform, my father wore work. Between them, they built a house where appearance replaced intimacy. The currency of that system was denial. No one said what they felt, because to do so would unravel everything. I absorbed that script before I could read. My mother's drinking wasn't rebellion, it was obedience to that old rule. Silence first, sensation later. Barley wine was her tranquilizer, the same way her father's stoicism had been his. The family myth was endurance. You coped, you smiled, you kept the curtain straight. I used to think my addictions were mine alone. Now I see they were a dialect of some old language, the one that says, don't feel, just function. Alexander's idea of dislocation helps explain it. Addiction, he argues, isn't genetic destiny, but a social wound, the symptom of a culture that fragments connection. My family's version of that wound was emotional rather than geographic. The war had scattered them internally. Home was a place, but never a base. John Bowlby called security the foundation of development. When it's missing, the child learns control instead of trust. That was our inheritance, control as comfort. Respectability became our collective anaesthetic. It numbed the class shame, the fear of judgment, the brief no one dared name. When my mother poured her drink in secret, she wasn't breaking the rule, she was worshipping it. The rule was, never let them see you suffer. My father, quieter but no less bound, worked long hours to maintain the facade. His silence was devotion to the same God. I carried that devotion into my own life. Different rituals, same faith. I drank and used drugs not to rebel against them, but to perfect their method. Where they used silence, I used noise. Where they used politeness, I used parties. Where they put on a good spread, I wrecked the place. But the engine was identical, the management of feeling. Trauma, when unspoken, becomes choreography. You repeat it until it looks like personality. Marto reminds us that we pass on our childhood to our children the pain we have not faced ourselves. My mother passed hers through tone and gesture, not intention. My father passed his through absence. Neither meant harm, they simply followed the script. Addiction in that sense runs not through blood, but through story, the unexamined stories we enact until we learn to write new ones. Anarchism at heart is a refusal of inherited authority. That principle applies as much to family myths as to political systems. To break the lineage of repression is to practice revolution on the smallest scale, means listening where silence ruled, speaking where secrecy was sacred. The healing of a generation begins with rewriting its language. When I look back now, I don't see villains. I see actors trapped in a play that started long before them. They did what the script required, kept face, kept busy, kept numb. My rebellion wasn't against their rules so much as their fear. To feel fully, to speak openly, to live visibly. Those are the heresies that break the family spell. Every honest word is an edit in the inherited text, and every edit, however small, is freedom. And no script ends neatly. The house may fade, the actors move on, yet the lines stay lodged in the mind. The next section shows how the inheritance followed me out into the world, into new institutions, wearing old clothes. And next up we have still chapter 2, section 17, the domestic asylum.